California is more corrupt than any place. California is more corrupt than Minnesota.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that an investigation to check frauds into California has begun. Trump made the claim first in a Truth Social post and later repeated it during a GOP retreat address and accused California of being more corrupt than Minnesota's recent fraud scandal. In the post, Trump targeted Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom using a derogatory nickname and sharp political language. Trump's remarks follow heightened scrutiny in Minnesota, where investigators are probing large-scale welfare fraud cases. Those cases involve allegations that billions of taxpayer funds were misused through federally funded assistance programs. Federal authorities have linked some of the Minnesota investigations to alleged misuse of child care and welfare grants. Trump has repeatedly cited the Minnesota scandal as evidence of failures under Democratic state leadership. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz ended his bid for a third term amid mounting political fallout from the probes. The president is now using the controversy to widen his attacks on Democratic-led states nationwide. Trump claims California is facing similar issues, though no federal agency has publicly confirmed an active probe. Governor Gavin Newsom, a potential 2028 presidential contender, has frequently sparred with Trump online.
For 4 years, we had the worst president, did the worst job, they had the worst policy. We have to even run against these people. Now, I won't say cancel the election. They should cancel the election because the fake news will say, he wants the elections canceled. He's a dictator. They always call me a dictator. Nobody's worse than Obama and the people that surrounded Biden. Not Biden. I don't think it was Biden. He didn't know what the hell was going on, okay? The election was rigged. He had no idea what happened. He still doesn't. The auto pen. And by the way, you ought to make a big deal out of the auto pen. The auto pen was your president because most of the things were signed by auto pen. And you're not allowed to do that. I signed very little. Now I just sign everything because it's just so crazy. But you know, like I had the other day, we elevated a general to 4 stars. I think you should sign that. You know, that's a big deal. A general did a great job, was elevated to 4 stars. And I had the gentleman, and I signed it in front of him, held it up. You know, you got to sign it. You can't give it to an auto pen. And you can always tell an auto pen. One thing, it has 2 little tiny dots. You know that? 2 little dots. You know what that's from? 2 pins. They go bing, bing. They're wonderful things. But you got to sign it. And the law is you have to sign it. If somebody's, telling the auto pen person, he has to be authorized by the President of the United States. Well, he wasn't. The guy barely knew the President. How many times did you speak to the President, right? He said 2. And they just spoke about the weather. It was like this. But he was never authorized to sign. And I think 95% of the things were signed by auto pen. You can tell because the auto pen is a nice, clean signature, and his signature's a mess. The only thing he signed was, which is nice, was Hunter's pardon. That's the only thing that we can find that he signed. Most of it he didn't sign. So somebody's sending papers to sign, and he wasn't the president. First of all, the election was rigged. You ought to have voter ID. You ought to insist on it. You ought to insist on it. Can you imagine? In California, they not only don't have voter ID, but if an official at the voting booths, which they don't have, by the way, because it's all mail, if an official, a voting official, even asks somebody for voter ID, sir, would like to see your identification. Do you come from our country? They put him in jail for tampering with the election. Okay? We got to straighten this out before it gets too crazy. California is more corrupt than any place. California is more corrupt than Minnesota. And I won Minnesota. Well, Tom's going, I think so. Well, it's close. It can't be proportionately, probably nothing's more corrupt, right? We got to win something. Yeah, right. He says you got to win. I'll tell you what, I did great there 3 times. I was surprised 3 times Those elections are corrupt. They got you one time too, but I heard a long time ago, but they got you. But they got to straighten those out. But we have to have voter ID. And you know, when you confront a Democrat about voter ID, like in a debate or something, I said it a couple of times with Biden, and they're very embarrassed when they say, we want voter ID, voter identification. The only reason somebody doesn't want that is because they want to cheat. Our elections are crooked as hell. And you can not only win elections over that, and not only win future elections, but you'll win every debate because the public is really angry about it. And you ought to pass the SAFE Act, or whatever you're going to call it. Are we going to SAVE Act or the Save America Act? I think we're going to change the name a little bit. You're going to put that up for a vote? I think everybody in this room certainly should do it. And it's a bad vote for them because they're voting against things like voter ID and other things that are almost equal to voter ID. But when somebody says, no, we don't want voter ID, that means they're crooked. And the public understands it. You win elections with that. But I think it would be really important, Save America Act, if you would put that up for a vote. It's got my total endorsement. And all it is common sense things about the election. And they'll fight it like crazy because they cheat. That's the only way they can win. When you have policy so bad, when you have policy with men and women's sports, and they fight like hell for it. They still are. I saw the other day a person that you know very well, a congressman, was fighting like hell. And, you know, I was out the other day with somebody, and I was with an ex-football player. The guy was massive. His leg was like this. And a young woman who plays flag football, and she's very good supposedly as an athlete. She's smaller than this guy's leg, okay? And if they were playing football together, he wouldn't even have to run. He could just keep walking. They couldn't take him down. You know, the guy, he can't even believe it. But there's so many. They had a race, a long-distance race. They had champion men, women, you know, one of those marathon deals. The man finished 5 hours and 14 minutes and 36 seconds sooner. He beat the champion woman by 5 hours. It's so demeaning to women. It's so ridiculous, right? It's so ridiculous. The weightlifting, take a look at the weightlifting records. One record stood for 18 years, and it was broken by 112 pounds. They couldn't get 1/8 of an ounce, you know? They'd put 1/8 of an ounce on, and she's going to break the record for her mom who's sitting in the front with her father. I'm going to break it, Dad. And she's out there. We're adding 1/8 of an ounce to each side. This record has stood, ladies and gentlemen, for 18 years. But she's going to do it. She's looking to get into the Olympics, right? And she gets up, and they put a little tiny thing like this, little thing. And my wife, by the way, my wife hates when I do this. She said, you know, she's a very classy person, right? She said, it's so unpresidential. I said, but I did become president. You know, she hates when I dance. I said, everybody wants me to dance. Darling, it's not presidential. She actually said, could you imagine FDR dancing? She said that to me.